Alright guys, hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Crackdown. Here we are with Svenskeren from EG, hashtag LiveEvil. We are here to discuss, obviously, the last season. Man, I saw you got the smirk on your face. I mean, you started a fucking movement with this. But yeah, we're here to discuss pretty much mainly LCS. We'll talk a little bit about EG's roster changes, C9's collapse, and just how LCS has been looking going forward. But
Let's be real, we're going to get into everything. We're going to ask him about Bjergsen. We're going to ask about Jack fucking just betraying him and kicking him out. We're going to ask about his impossible list of basically Jesus, Allah, and fucking Faker have to join the team. We're going to ask about everything. Don't worry. Listen, he's put it off a long time coming on these shows. So if he says yes, listen, I'll leave it to him to say fucking no. We're going to ask about everything. By the way, I just want to say at the beginning that we let Svenskeren pick the track because basically the guest usually gets to pick the music. And even though that track is a banger, like it's obviously probably Kanye's best album, it's a pretty good track. Two things I have to say. Don't usually do music review, but I thought I'd just give you the real. One, that whole verse where he attempts to crowbar all that like Egyptian like theme just doesn't work at all. Where he starts talking about putting people's pussy in a sarcophagus. Like that doesn't, there's no wit to that. It's not clever, it's not edgy, there's nothing. It's garbage, it's absolute garbage, Kanye. Whoever ghost wrote that for you, fire them. And secondly,
I disagree. I disagree. Yeah, that was a fire line.
That's the worst part. What does it mean to put someone's pussy in a sarcophagus? Doesn't even mean anything. It's just a fucking golden tomb, isn't it? Like,
yeah, he's gonna murder that shit.
Whatever. It's garbage.
Okay, fine.
If I told you that I'm doing a track, it's going to be Kanye West, and this is at his peak, remember? I don't know who the other rapper is. I forget who that is. Just some of it's like Posse or something. And then the third person is Nicki Minaj, right? Who is considered like a joke rapper because all her stuff is like overtly salacious and sexualized, and it's usually not very good. Tell you what, she murders that track. She murks all of them. Kanye is nothing compared to her. Her verse is about 10 times above the level. So either whoever goes stroke for her, great job, or if she actually did it, even better job. There you go, music.
All right, Svenskeren, give us your take. Who had the best verse on that song? I mean, you're the one that picked it. So.
Well, I listen to Kanye, so I like Kanye's verse the most.
Okay, I'd say that's a respectable answer, you know? I mean,
that's a for why the whole Bjergsen thing didn't work out on TSM, but let's get into it. So, all right.
Oh,
Anyways, let's talk about EG first to make it like a soft entry into this whole thing. Make it fun.
I mean, we don't even have to go soft with EG. I mean, so obviously in spring, you guys had a pretty good performance. Finished third in spring. Coming into summer, you kept the same lineup of Kumo, Jizuke, you, and obviously Bang and Zeyzal in the bot lane. And around week 5, you guys switched out everything. Now, I like this roster move kind of like went away quietly, and especially like how it was done. You know, we didn't see Jizuke playing in academy and then potentially like join the main team again. And yeah, I mean, I would just love to know like any information around that move itself, and then we could go into like the fact that Jizuke was pretty much just like banished. I mean, this guy was one of the top players in the league in spring, and then we never heard anything from him come summer. I mean, he didn't play in academy. It didn't seem like he got like any more games on stage. I mean, well, obviously he didn't get any more games on stage. So what was like your perception of the roster move, at least? Because I mean, those are both your solo laners that got switched out.
Yeah, so I think during the spring split finals, we kind of, not the finals, but like our matches against FlyQuest, we kind of saw a big disparity in how Kumo was holding up against Solo. And I think Solo was like smurfing on the meta picks that was in top lane. And I think we kind of had we had a hard time picking those champions up for Kumo. Whereas he's more of a carry type player, and we couldn't really figure out these meta tanks in the top lane. So it just felt like every game against FlyQuest, we were just going to lose because of that. And I think coming into Summer Split, we really wanted to expand our champion pools. And I think it just took a while, and it kind of just, we didn't really figure out like what the meta picks are, and it just kind of struggled. Like we kind of struggled to pick them up. And I mean, the changes, obviously I wasn't really in charge of those. I think it was more like
you get your input though, right? You get to say what you think of the players.
Yeah, of course they asked me for input, and I mean I gave my input on it.
Now, like you're like, I didn't make the choice. Well, go and tell us, homie. Did you pick for Huni to start, or did you want Jizuke? Go on, LiveEvil. Go on.
So obviously, yeah, we did some tryouts with Golden Glue and Huni at the same time. Whereas we also, I mean, we were playing with Jizuke and Kumo, and it just felt like we had more of a clear goal on how to play the game with Golden Glue and Hunian, because they're both like very vocal, and they kind of know how to play the game as a team game way. Whereas the lineup with Jizuke and Kuma was more just skill based, and we kind of lacked like an identity that wasn't Jizuke just 1v9ing, and we felt like we couldn't really. Our games just weren't ever going to be consistent if we just relied on Jizuke to 1v9 every time.
Right.
Because
obviously, a thing that was a bit weird about that move is that because of the import rules, it meant that basically you were going to have to do one or the other. It basically had to be Golden Glue and Huni if you wanted Huni to play, or if Jizuke stays, you can't have Huni. You have to stay with Kumo. So part of the problem with this move is no one really knows which part of that equation you were trying to address. So, like, even though it's purely speculation, if there was no import rules, would it have been Huni and Jizuke, or was there actually a reason stylistically that you wanted Golden Glue in the team, as in, e.g., the team, not just you specifically, obviously?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think if there was no import limits, we'd probably have tried Huni and Jizuke and just see how crazy it would be, I guess. Because both of those players are quite crazy players, so it would have been fun. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to say because of the import rules, so can't really make a decision on it.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, was it just a clear, like, around week 6 where it's like, okay, we are now using Huni and Golden Glue for the remainder of the split, and there was just like no like contention for the spots anymore? Or did you guys like scrim? Because there was a point where things like were not going super well. I think there was a point where you were like 3-5 with Huni and Golden Glue, and you guys won one of the first games against Cloud9 in the beginning. It seemed like you guys were losing more towards the end of the split, and then you obviously lost out to FlyQuest. Was there any like reevaluation during that time? Like, did you guys give Kumo and Jizuke more time like in scrims, or was it just clear like that one day, hey, we are using Huni and Golden Glue for the rest of our time here on EG?
I'm not sure how they perceived it, because obviously like they're the ones who get benched, so they might have perceived it differently than me. But to me, at least, what I got told is that we're going to be using whoever's playing better. So like, for example, if Golden Glue griefing every game, then he would get subbed out and Jizuke would get back in. But to me, it never really felt like Grayson was playing poorly or anything. So like, even in the games we lost, it was never like stupid mid gap or something like this. So it was more like we just kind of like messed up as a team or something in the late game. Is what it felt like to me. So yeah, it never really felt like they were just gone from the roster. Like, if we're gonna play better with them, then obviously I think they would be playing.
I'm not hating on you. Like, to be fair, this meta was actually kind of champions you play anyway. But bearing in mind, a bunch of the top teams in NA had troubles with their jungler. Broxah had his issues in Team Liquid, Spica and TSM, etc. Where were you carrying, mate? You were the MVP last year. Like, isn't this your time to step up and fucking carry the team and show jungle difference every game?
Yeah. I mean, I could have played better this year for sure. I think that I was focusing a lot on the team aspects of the game, but of course, we didn't really win, so I could have focused on other aspects more, I guess, because it didn't pay off. So yeah, I mean, I think in the playoffs, I did play not poorly compared to the regular season, where I played pretty poorly, but I think in the playoffs I did play pretty well, but obviously it wasn't enough.
Because, you know, if someone's a Svenskeren fan and they want to make the case, like, listen, you've won a lot of championships, you've been in loads of teams that have been in the finals, you've done loads of different things. But the problem is, mate, at the moment, you know how narratives work. Once an idea gets powerful and more powerful, people repeat it, and eventually, whether it's true or not, it will become reality. Well, I'll tell you the storyline right now, so I want to get your take on this. Is, even though you were the MVP, because right after that, everyone thought the MVP was Blabber, people now think it's just Nisqy. They think Nisqy's like the MVP maker in the same way as, like, you know, like, I'm trying to think, an example would be like Mithy was like the AD carry maker in Europe, you know, because all the players that played with him just became the best. So, like, what would you say to that? Because now people are going to think, well, when you left Nisqy, where's the MVP go?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to really say anything against that. I mean,
What about, if it's not true, just go ahead and tell us what you think, like just some of the way you work. What do you mean you can't say anything against that? It's not true, is it?
I mean, I never got MVP when I wasn't playing with Nisqy, right? So...
Sure.
I mean, in that case, like, there's something about it, you know? He also made Blabber MVP.
Oh, so... Sure. Okay, how did he help you then? What's playing with Niski like? What helps the jungler in that regard then?
I just think he's very open to moving from his lane and helping out the jungler in that regards, getting vision and just sacrificing his own lane to really get the jungler ahead, like always moving for crabs. And I mean, that just really helps make the jungler look a lot better when your mid lane is always willing to pick Galio or Zoe just for mid priority.
Sure.
So you can do whatever you want to do. But I mean, yeah, that's just like some of the basic things I guess he does that make the jungler look a lot better.
I mean, you played with a lot of mid laners, right? Like, I think you're like the only player that's got to play with like the trifecta of
all the best ones, yeah.
Yeah, all the best ones in NA. So you got to play with Bjergsen, Jensen, Niski. Do you have a like personal favorite? I mean, I know you didn't play that much with Jensen at the end because you kind of were like in that Swole Bros versus Jensen and Blabber roster in C9. But like, do you have a favorite out of those three that you played with?
I mean, to me, it's just very different types of players. Whereas, like the Niski playstyle, I really enjoy playing with because it's more up to me how well I'm playing if we win the game. But with the Bjergsen or Jensen, it's like doesn't really matter how I play the game as long as I give resources to them. Then they'll kind of carry. So yeah, it's just very opposite, like polarizing playstyles. Yeah. So I mean, I don't really have a clear favorite. I really like playing with Bjergsen, and I mean, I like playing with Niski and Jensen too.
That is the most politically correct answer. I mean, they're all good players.
It's mental, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, listen, he's not wrong. Like, you can't say anything he said was wrong, but like, fucking hell. He goes to Nando's and eats it with the fucking mild spice, I can tell. He's just like, oh, it's a bit too hot for me. They're like, we haven't put any flavour on yet. He's like, I don't know if I can handle that. Fucking hell. Salt and pepper.
We tried to bait him, you know? I mean, this is the crackdown.
Exactly.
You know? I've been hating on TSM fans. We got Thorin hating on TSM fans. You know,
I actually realized Svenskeren might be the only person impervious to my approach, because if people don't know, because you can tell people how you do things, they don't change anyway. Like, what I do basically is when people are really cagey and they won't answer, you just provoke them by essentially saying something you know they won't agree with, because then to not agree, they have to like explain themselves emphatically. But the problem is when I told him, like, so what, Niski just carry you? He's like, yeah, he's a good guy. It's like, fuck it, I'll get you out. Like, what do you think of those guys? I think all three are God's children, and they're all different, and we should celebrate the difference. Like, did you write Obama's speeches or something? You were secret fucking ghostwriter in 2009. Can we find out your track record? What you were doing? Give me a break.
I mean, I feel like Svenskeren's just the counter to Thorin at this point. You know, like what can I actually do at this point to negotiate it? But I guess back.
We'll get it back. We'll get it back. There's different tactics. There's more tricks in the bag than that. There's more than one way to skin a bag.
Is that
for that matter? You can
that
put a cat in it and then skin it. No, here's what we want to know.
Is that a British saying? Like, what the fuck is that?
I messed it up. I just said the word wrong, mate. Here's what we want to know, right? Is basically when we did this episode, we did a whole episode about it where Dom revealed that list that you gave to Jack of like I think it was like 14 different names or something, and they were just like it was literally just like the all-star team of everyone in Asia, like all the best fucking Korean players in every position, right? When you gave that, this is the question, Svenskeren. Did you do that as sort of a polite way of just saying, I'm basically going to leave? Because like it was almost impossible he could got those names. Like even though Team Liquid have tried for names like that, even they don't get like 3 names like that. Like they'd be looking to get one, like Core JJ or something like. So when you gave him that list, the implication is you kind of knew you were going, right? You were kind of like, yeah, I'd stay if you did this impossible thing for me.
Yes, kind of.
You didn't really think he was getting Chovy and fucking like or whatever, Shy or whatever it was. Like, come on.
Well, the way it was like kind of handled was that I was in negotiations with Jack, and I was kind of explaining to him that I wanted to move on from the team, and it came down to like an ultimatum, kind of like, whereas he was like, okay, what would it take for you to stay?
Right. He actually presented the scenario, like, what could I do essentially? And so you gave him a ridiculous scenario, but it was because you just essentially you didn't want to be in that Cloud9 team anymore unless it was like basically the best team in the world.
Basically, yeah. Unless he would get one of these players, I wanted to move on. And he just said, like, okay, this list is kind of impossible, so took it as that and then let me move on teams.
That's actually
one thing I have that's an issue for me with that whole issue is this, mate, is that was presented publicly that Jack is such a next level gangster. He always wanted to go with Blabber. So what he did was he like built up Faisal and Svenskeren. He sold them when Svenskeren was the MVP, but he kept Blabber and like all these next level chess moves. But the problem with that angle is every story you hear, Svenskeren could have been in Cloud9 if he wanted to right now. So it's just not true. And then the angle that like they knew Blabber was better, it's just clearly not true. Otherwise they wouldn't waste their time negotiating with Svenskeren when he costs more money. Like none of these, like I actually feel like that's the story, Svenskeren, that like the public just hasn't got like, they've got like one side of it. And it's not that Cloud9 has lied. They've just presented it a certain way that have let people take that conclusion. Like you could be in Cloud9 this year if you'd wanted to be, right?
I mean, I was still contracted, so I'm sure I could have been, unless Jack just sold me. But
Were you
I mean,
worried about the idea of being benched though, like at Worlds?
well,
Was
they
that a
did bench me
consequence
at
of potentially
Worlds,
move on?
so well,
Yeah, but
that was
like, was
my
that a
big-
factor to leave though, basically?
Oh yes, definitely. That was like the big reason why I wanted to move teams. Otherwise, I would have probably stayed.
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
that looked absolutely insane from the outside, right? Because we're just here expecting to see, you know, Svenskeren, the MVP of the league at Worlds, like, and then I think you played like, would you play 2 out of the 4 games or 3 out of the 4 games? I know that they put in Blabber for 2 of the games in the first week, which is like really important.
It was just, yeah, it was really rough because I played 3 games and he played 3 games, but the way it was done was just really poorly. Like, I remember going into the games I got, like I won the first game and then Blabber played the next 2. And then when I got subbed back in, like basically we had to win that game or we were out of Worlds. And to me, that was kind of crazy considering I just won my last game and then the next game I'm getting subbed into is the deciding match. And I'm just like, I wouldn't say. Well, I mean, it just kind of messed with my mental a little bit. So yeah, we kind of just got demolished.
I'll tell you something fucked up I heard. Have you heard this, Tom? I wonder if this got to you. I heard literally, because I was the same thing on it, even when I was doing like some of the insight on camera, I would say every single time, like, why is Svenskeren not being played? Like, what's the point of this? The little bird I heard told me this, Tom, that basically Reaper and Cloud9 thought, we're not getting out of this group with Griffin and G2 anyway. So they just fucked around and put Blabber in to give him experience. That's what I heard. Fucked up, by the way, to be in a Worlds group and do that in best of 1 where like a million teams have fluked it, upset the bigger team. Like it's doable, of course. So, but that's what I heard.
I heard something different.
You hear anything similar?
No, what I heard was that essentially like Blabber was just like a more like aggressive jungler, and to like play against these like
scrims and stuff.
Yeah, like these high tier junglers, like they weren't gonna win with like Svenskeren's like more like, you know, controlled style. So they pretty much sent Blabber in there like, hey, like go fuck him up, kid. Like get in there, like invade some golems, like yeah, like just be like fuck up the game a little bit, and maybe we have a better chance of like winning that type of game. Than, you know, like a stable game because they're just a better team than us. Are either of these like accurate? Because I mean, obviously these are just things that we're hearing behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's just speculation. What do you think? What is that line with anything you've heard, Svenskeren?
I'm just gonna be honest. When the roster stuff were going down, it wasn't really any discussion or anything.
Right.
I don't think any of us actually got told why we're playing or why we're not playing. So it's just like. I mean, you guys probably know more than I do in regards to it.
That sounds kind of fucked up, to be honest. Was that roster kind of just like, was the reason that you wanted to make this change just kind of like the vibe within that roster? I mean, obviously we heard those problems between Licorice and the bot lane in general, just not getting along with the rest of the team. Was it just like an environment that you no longer felt comfortable in? Is that the main reason you wanted to leave?
You could say that. And just, I felt like some bridges kind of got burned at World Stage, where I felt like I wanted to play some more games, but I didn't get the chance to. And just a certain level of tryhard from the coaching staff, I felt like it was really lacking at Worlds, and I wanted something done about that, but the Jack and whoever else decided that it wasn't necessary to change that.
So it's Reaper versus Svenskeren. We're putting it here first, you know, like get the headlines out, you know, we'll just clickbait the shit out of it. No, I'm just kidding, obviously, but yeah, I mean, there was definitely
a lot of players, dude. Even his active players sort of make it sound like they never quite know fully what Reaper's thinking about. He's not a guy who apparently explains all of his plans. He just gives you, just does it like the Illuminati. He just gives you like the one part you need to know about to work on that part of an engine for a plane or something, you know, and then just see what happens. You know, you don't know what the end case is. Thing is, though, like you must have some thoughts on that. Like put it this way: on your side, were you having more troubles in scrims when you were at Worlds? Was it not going well?
don't recall too much. I think me and Blabber were both.
You recall if you were going 18-0 versus fucking Griffin and Dan 1 SKT. So the fact you can't recall means it wasn't good.
Definitely, we were not losing every game. I remember we were able to beat like RNG and stuff like that, so it wasn't too bad. The only teams we just got stomped by, I think, were FPX and I don't remember the other Chinese team.
Oh,
Damong as well.
So you had
I
IG?
think IG as well, but we were able to beat like pretty much everyone else.
Yeah.
Because that's the other angle to the C9 story I find whack as a narrative, is that everyone praises Cloud9, right? Because, look, they're the only ones who implemented a real sports system where you bench the player and then he learns his lesson. No one learned his lesson. Jensen and Svenskeren, the two best players who were the best players being subbed out, just left the team and went elsewhere. And everyone's going to laugh now like, ha, Thorn, you idiot, Svenskeren's just been knocked out of play. You know who's about to win playoffs, right? Jensen, the guy kicked out, and he won the last two as well. So, he didn't win the spring one. We won 2 last year. So, that story, it's like everyone always just wants to make it a movie story for some reason. Like, listen, Jack played it very well from his perspective because he got the most amount of money from it. He got some very good players still. He's got a very good team. So, he did well there. But people try to make it, again, like he's some Bond villain who sees 18 moves in every direction. He didn't. I guarantee when they made those benchings, they hoped they could go into 20... That would have been last year. They hoped they would have gone into this year with all the players, and it would be a bench rotation, and they'd use someone that made sense. Well, I don't think they wanted to lose these players. As we're saying, Jensen said the same thing. He left because of what they did to him in the spring and summer finals, where they just didn't put him in for that stupid game because he had some wacky comp in mind. Stuff like that isn't actually next level how you manage players. That pissed those players off. They don't want to be in Cloud9 anymore. What's funny is none of them hate Cloud9, but they just don't want to be there anymore. I feel like that angle was way oversold. It certainly worked if you wanted Blabber, yes. But I think it also cost them some talent. I think they went too far the other direction on that one, personally. And
I think that's a great question that we can ask Svenskeren here, because he was in that exact series. He was the one that played with Jensen in that final game. So essentially in 2018 summer finals, that was when you guys were the Swell Bros. You were subbed out for actually the majority of summer split, and then you ended up coming back and you were playing with Golden Glue primarily. You won that epic 5-game series, and in finals you ended up being played 1 game with Golden Glue. Golden Glue just got absolutely smashed. You got solo killed in lane and just demolished, and then the next game you ended up playing with Jensen in the decider game, and apparently you guys had not scrimmed together at all. Did you have any opinions on that series yourself? Did you think that the coaching, the benchings were super weird within the context of that series?
I mean, this is just one of the many cases of Reaper being the mastermind that he is. So going up to the leading up to the finals, it was supposed to be me and Grayson playing. Unless we got 0-2 or something, then Jensen and Blau were gonna play. But then the scrims were going really poorly, so they decided that Jensen and Blau were gonna play, literally on the last day of scrims or something. So they haven't been playing at all, because the setup for playoffs is only gives you 5 or 6 PCs, but obviously we have a 7-man roster, so it was quite tragic in that regards. So they couldn't really play, except I think Blabber was playing on a laptop or something that they just brought with them.
It's even worse. I don't think Jensen even mentioned that. That's even worse. It's one thing if you're just practicing with all the players, it's going to be a game time decision. If one of them isn't even playing, then he's just getting to play in the final. That is madness. Listen, Reaper, that's not some next level move, mate. That's just bad management. You're putting in a player who's not prepared. And by the way, I know in Korea it works where you do those substitutions where it's right, they sub you partly to show the player removed, you did something wrong, and then whoever they're putting in, it's their big chance to get in the team. Maybe they do well and they earn the spot. That doesn't work in the West. We've seen that. Here's what happens with a Westerner when you throw him in the last game. It's with Soaz in that World's final when Fnatic had already just gotten shit stomped super hard 2 games in a row, and they were go on Soaz, you have a game. That's what it feels like when you're that player. It feels like getting put in the game at the end of a cup final that's already lost, and you're just playing garbage time just so you can say you played. You don't feel I'm coming in to win the game for the team. It's going to be awesome. That so rarely happens. Instead, the player coming in just thinks, I'm not even warmed up. Everyone else has played 2-4 games in the series. I'm going to look shit. So, that ain't the mentality that you want. I don't think it works for Westerners. I know it worked in that one instance against TSM. That one, it worked. I'm not sure why, fair play, it worked once. But most of the times, I don't feel like a lot of LCS players respond well to that move. I don't think it's Koreans where you can just put them in that way.
The series against TSM, where it worked for us, was really, I think the preparation that Reaper did was really well handled back then. Whereas going into the whole week of scrims, we actually talked about it, that if the game ever goes down to like 0-2 or like 1-2, anytime we lose 2 games, then me and Grayson are going to play.
Ah, right.
And
okay.
going into this series, like, I mean, we felt really confident if it goes to 2 games, like, okay, it's our turn to play. And I mean, that just felt really nice to me. But the finals was just really, the scheduling or roster management was just all over the place, just scrambling for anything to work, but nothing really was working. So yeah, that's just the main differences in it, I feel like.
Did you have some sort of issues, not like as people, but just in the game? Was there some sort of issue between you and Jensen? Because that matchup never seemed to work as well as it should have. Like, I mean, you were the MVP later. He's obviously been like, if not an MVP candidate, like he should have probably won MVP a few times. On paper, that should be a dream matchup. Even both Danish. Like, what was the disconnect? Because something didn't quite work out. There's a reason why you guys weren't even the main starters all the time in the team, right?
I mean, I think me and Jensen kind of realized how to play with each other later on. Like during Worlds, I think we were playing really well together. But something that Blabber really brought out in Jensen was just that Blabber took a lot of fights. And if you're not moving to help Blabber in the fights, then he's just going to die all the time. So it kind of became Jensen kind of had to do something in the game. Whereas when he was playing with me, he was just kind of staying in mid lane, not really moving or just trying to win his lane, you know. But with Blabber, then he was kind of forced to just be on his toes, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But I didn't really understand how to play with Jensen at the beginning, but something I learned a lot.
Okay, it sounds like from this conversation that you've been having when you referenced earlier Bjergsen and Jensen, even though you enjoy playing with someone like Niski who plays with you, it sounds like in a weird way you like respect the mid laner still who just stays and farms and always wins his lane and he's going to be the like as long as they do their job, you respect it, right?
I think Jensen is really insane player. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's just that it's easier to play with certain players because I don't have to constantly keep track of what's going on mid lane.
You don't like to be the guy who tells them when to calm and what to do and stuff. You want them to have their own idea?
Yeah, kind of. So playing with Jensen is more like, I mean, I need to tell him if I need him to move. But playing with Niski, he's just going to be moving on his own, you know, and being there before the enemy mid laner. But with Jensen, if you're not telling him like, okay, I need you here in like 10 seconds, then the enemy mid laner might just come first and then I'm dead. So that was something I had to learn playing with Jensen for sure.
Yeah. Was it different playing with Bjergsen? Because you obviously had played with Bjergsen right before that. You would think that they have like similar styles in just like how they play. And that's why you have a lot of conversation about like which one's the better one because they both are like so similar. What made it like easier to play with Bjergsen than with Jensen for you specifically?
I think they're really similar, but the thing Bjergsen was just better at was just being more vocal on his timings and more vocal on enemy timings, which, I mean, was the kind of the only way TSM would play. This is Bjergsen would say, okay, in 30 seconds I can move, and then if you die before then you're inting, and it's really bad. But if you play on his timing, then it's gonna look like a good team. So yeah, that's just kind of the Bjergsen way, I guess.
Do you not like to tell people what you want, Svenskeren? Like for some reason, you're like some girlfriends I've had, mate, where you want the other person to know what you're thinking and what you want to do. But if you have to tell them, then that would ruin everything. So they have to just know it without you saying, and then that means they're the right person. Like, mate, how did you ever let those fucking TSM players bully you, mate? If I were you, I'd just stand up and be like, Double F, shut the fuck up. You were in CLG for years. You were doing nothing, you clown. You were going out in the group. Bjergsen, mate, I almost put you out of a Worlds. If they hadn't fucking taken 3 games from me, I'd have put you out of that bitch-ass Worlds. You would have never even got out of groups once. Like, why are you confident, mate? You've been like an MVP candidate in 3 different teams in 2 different regions. Just fucking put your chest out. Tell them what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to do what you need. You're the better jungler.
Well,
hire me as your hype man, apparently.
I mean, I'm down to play like that sometimes when the meta really suits it. So right now when it's like Graves meta and stuff, then the jungler can actually call for stuff, but it just depends on what jungler you're playing, really. Like, if you're playing a tank and you're calling for resources, then I think you're doing more harm than good for the team, so it just depends what meta it is, really.
But you know, in those teams, you're the one who got scapegoated. I mean, listen, they tried to do it double if when he wasn't in the team, but then because he won all the championship with the TL, they had to sort of shut up if they were TSM fans. And obviously, he's back now. But like, you were the one who always used to get scapegoated. Like, you were in theory, right? Yeah, dude, that was like an all-star team. Every player was supposed to be one of the best at their role, including you, coming from SK and obviously later in Cloud9. So like, everyone just remembers it as like they were all really good, but Svenskeren was the one who was bad. It's like, does that fuck with you? It's kind of whack, right? You still won the championship, went to Worlds all those times.
Yeah, I mean, that's mostly just the fans saying that. So as long as my teammates think I'm a good player, then I don't really care too much.
Yep.
Okay. How did you resolve those issues in TSM then? Because obviously, like, there were some issues when you went internationally as a team, right? Domestically, you were obviously very dominant. Everyone remembers the 17-1 split. But like internally in the team, what were people's sense in that regard? Because whenever the failures would happen at Worlds, all we'd ever get would be like one tweet, like apologizing from Bob Bjergsen and Doublelift, and then they just go silent for 3 months, you know. And obviously at that point, they shut off the reality series, so we don't get to see what happens. Like, were people actually mentally able to resolve the whatever issues were happening?
It was pretty stressful at Worlds, not gonna lie. Anytime we went to a tournament on TSM, it was just way too many emotions and way too stressful. People were just going kind of crazy, I guess. So it kind of messed with me and my confidence for sure. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's why we kind of sucked.
Yeah. How did you feel? Because the 2016 Worlds, like, I mean, the team seemed to play pretty well. Like, I chalked that one up as being one of the actual unlucky ones where you guys had
a very unlucky group, by the way. That was a hard group.
Yeah, you guys got a pretty insanely hard group. You guys went 3-3. I think Samsung also went 3-3 in that group, if I'm not mistaken, and then they ended up going like all the way. Or I think maybe RNG went 3-3, and they ended up going deeper in the tournament as well. But you essentially tied with one of the teams that got out of the group. And showed good performances in the games. I mean, obviously, like Double didn't have that moment in the Lucian versus Victor game. You probably end up getting out of that group. So I guess my question to you is, like, what ended up happening in the 2017 Worlds? Because 2016, you guys looked on form. It looked like you guys could play internationally. It did seem like you guys were playing towards the best of your abilities. But the 2017 Worlds, you guys seemed to have a much easier group, but something just collapsed. It got to the point where TSM was just completely inactive in the early game. It was like every single game, no one was moving around the map at all, and you guys just slowly lost. So what kind of like happened that made the roster devolve? Because that was like one of the main super teams that we had in NA.
Yeah. So I mean, just to me personally, it was just a huge confidence blunder, I would say. Like the scrims we had in 2017 really just made everyone doubt their own skill. And I mean, that's just speaking in my personal experience, at least. I play a lot better if I'm confident and I'm willing to go for plays because I feel like I'm gonna win the skirmishes. But yeah, when you get told during the scrims that you're kind of shit and it's going on for like 2 weeks straight, then kind of messes with my confidence for sure.
Do you mean you're getting told by teams, like?
Yeah, he means his teammates.
Well,
right?
Are you getting told by like managers? Or are you getting told by your team, or do you mean just like the feedback from the scrims? Like you guys are
life itself telling you.
Well, no, losing the scrims is like just indicating to you that you're not good. Are you saying that like?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much get my question.
I mean, I don't want to say who, but
yeah,
we were all kind of getting told that we're a shit team.
I wonder who it could be. That's absolutely crazy.
With a massive head, looks like a Lego character, but Asian.
No.
No,
nothing like that. But
so you could guess, you know.
Yeah. So
what in this scenario, by the way, one thing that people often used to comment about is like obviously Weldon when he worked with all the NA teams, because one thing he did a good job with he was very good as a salesman of his own skills, right? Because he knew since he's not working full time on these teams, he needs the other teams to pick him up. So he always did a very good job of like basically bragging about his successes. So he was with that TSM team, he was with G2, a bunch of teams that was successful. But famously, I'm pretty sure almost none of these teams ever actually took him to Worlds. I think they always left him behind. So I'm not talking.
16,
did you guys?
You
took him there? Right,
yeah,
I just mean not Weldon specifically, but someone in that kind of a role. Like, do you think that kind of a role would have helped, like in this 2017 example, for like, do you actually have you taken anything from working with people like that? Does it help you personally?
So I actually have a lot of respect for Weldon because when I first came to TSM, that was like the spring split, and we just didn't really have a team identity, and
sure.
we were really shit as a team. And then I think we hired Weldon for like a boot camp that we did during the split and leading up to playoffs or something. And I mean, he just made me feel more welcome in the team, and I think he made everyone more familiar with each other. And I think that's what we kind of needed at the time, to just like learn each other, to like learn to know each other, because we're just 5 good players set in a team, right? Expected to perform, but like, yeah, nobody really wanted to sacrifice for each other. But then Weldon came in and made everyone like feel more friendly with each other, I guess. So I think he does a really good job at connecting players and just making it feel more like a team. And I think that's why we were able to like play really well in 16 playoffs in spring, and also go on in summer and play pretty well, because I think they hired Weldon full time. And even though he does a lot of weird like voodoo stuff, or like, I don't know what to say,
mindfulness exercises,
mindfulness and stuff like this, then he's really good at like making people connect to each other.
Yeah, I mean, so I've heard a lot of good things about Weldon. I think the weirdest thing was that a lot of the times they would view Weldon as like only good for like a boot camp, or only good for a short while, where it seemed like he had a great impact with TSM specifically. I mean, obviously your boot camp in spring pretty much completely changed the team. You guys ended up going to the championship when you guys had pretty much no business being in that in that championship. I mean, I think you came into the playoffs like 5th seed or 6th seed, something like that.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, and then like in summer, obviously the team became one of the best teams, went to Worlds, almost got out of like one of the hardest groups. And then in 2017, you know, he's just going back to Europe. He's going back to G2. But from what I've heard, TSM didn't make like the real like big dick offer, like the huge approach to make sure that Weldon stayed. Do you think that like there's something about Weldon that makes him only good in short instances, or like that makes him good for just boot camps? Because that's essentially the role that he filled with TSM going forward.
So I think the reason why they didn't sign him for longer was just that something happened at World 16. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but like we had some league scrims.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was just something like that.
He did it basically. If people don't know, that was like heavily implied.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really know. Like, none of the people
said. Yeah, it's a mystery, isn't it? So I've made this joke many times, Svenskeren. It's weird how the only scrims that get leaked, but definitely not by the Western teams, is when Cloud9 or TSM's beating like fucking SK Telecom in the scrim. Like, well, that's the scrim that just gets leaked on the server. It's obvious you fuckers are just doing it yourselves, isn't it? Like, you're not hiding anything. Like, I don't know why you keep pretending like some fucking. It's not like it's not Area 51, is it? Like, it's not some super secret shit. You obviously just fucking leaked the shit. You're in the server. You were the ones playing.
Yeah, well, basically there was like 4 people or something with the data, like with these scrims on their emails, and one of them got hacked.
One more episode, right? I've invited you 4 here because you are the only 4. The murderer must be within this room. What is this shit? Like, what doesn't matter who it is.
It's an episode of Clue.
I mean, apparently they couldn't figure out who it was that got hacked. So
yeah. It's like the most shit plausible deniability ever, but whatever. Okay.
No. Continue with it.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So then Weldon, I don't know, he kind of made some comments about scrimming the Korean teams or something online, and basically no Korean teams wanted to scrim us after those comments, I think. So I think that kind of hurt us.
Yeah, let's be real. Like, jokes aside, that is just a misplay, isn't it? Like, in light of the fact that a scrim's been leaked where the Western team's winning against the Korean team, why would you ever make any comments after that? Like, in that scenario, by the way, this is the era when if you don't get the scrims against the Korean teams, you're dead, because they were the absolute best at the time, right? Like, you need those scrims against the teams in the other group. That is a big deal, actually.
Yeah, so I think he made some comments like that, and also at 16 Worlds, I think he made a decision that made Reginald really mad. So basically, they just didn't want to hire him for next year, I think.
Like what? 2017. Good eyebrows. What are you talking about? What decision?
I mean,
like he implied maybe he was going to go to work with someone else or something that must have hurt him on an emotional level, I'm assuming, right?
Or is it
Weldon really wanted freedom of players. So players let them do whatever they want to do, I guess. More freedom, and Reginald was kind of, he wanted more structured.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, something happened, and then you kind of felt like it was the wrong call, but Weldon just made the call in the moment, and didn't work out, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think it's weird that happened, but then they were still willing to bring Weldon back, like in 2017,
weird,
or maybe it was actually 2018. They were doing boot camps with Weldon when the team really was like going to shit and things like that. So I mean, I feel like it's weird that they had such a big falling out, and that either party was willing to go back into the situation. So like, I don't know.
Without one of them even dating someone in the org.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like in general, it's such a weird decision because like you can have people that make missed calls, but it seemed like I don't know from your perspective, was Weldon more valuable than like I guess the org viewed him as? Like, were you disappointed that Weldon wasn't working with you guys the next year, like personally? Because it seems like you liked working with the guy a lot.
I don't know if I was. I mean, I was kind of annoyed that he wasn't on the team anymore. I felt like he really helped us unionize, or whatever the word is, like become more of a team. But as well, I kind of felt like he kind of lost track of that towards the end, so I wasn't too unhappy with him not being on there. Like, we were doing way too much mindfulness, and like, I wouldn't say wasting our time, but like kind of wasting our time.
Didn't they overwork you a bit in that team? Like, I mean, he himself even said, like, you know, he shouldn't put any team through this because you were kind of like practicing like Korean style hours just all day long, right? Wasn't that when there's like 3 scrim blocks a day or something ridiculous?
Oh yeah, if I remember, like our Korean boot camp, it was like insane. Every day, triple block for like I don't know how long. It was like really insane. I just remember waking up every day at like 10 a.m. and 1 hour we have scrims until like 12 p.m. every single day, and it was just really crazy.
Yeah, that seems absolutely insane. Obviously, I mean 12 a.m. But yeah. That's insane. I just want to know, like, is there any specific examples you'd give us of like where the mindfulness went too far, where there was like a point where you're like, all right, what the fuck are we even doing at this point? Are you guys like, you know, like around in a circle, like fucking like with a textbook on your head, like balancing, like what ended up happening where you're just like, all right, this is the point where I no longer want to be mindful?
So I was there in my second Reiki session on double lift, hands off, of course, giving him my vibes. I thought, what am I even doing? This has got nothing to do with gank and bot lane. Double lift's like, listen, when I tell you to give me the Reiki, you give me the Reiki. And that's just how it went in TSM. So, no, what do you think?
So there's a few instances where it might have been too weird. So I remember at Worlds 16 again, we were doing sessions each morning. And so we had like, I think it was like every morning we had like 30 minutes was assigned to Weldon where he can speak, and then 30 minutes assigned to Path where we can talk about draft before each scrim day. And I don't even really remember because I kind of zoned out in the Weldon's meetings or whatever because the things you were talking about was just really out there. Like.
Sounds like it worked well. Like, sorry, well, I didn't hear you. I became one, and I was just with all consciousness around the universe. So I wasn't specifically listening to you.
Yes, some really spiritual stuff we were talking about, and I kind of forgot about it, whatever we were talking about, but...
You probably regressed to a past life and started putting women in sarcophaguses or something. Reference to the opening song, by the way, in case did anyone hear it, because that doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the opening song isn't even cut into the crack count, so people are just going to think you're on one.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, people are going to be like, wow, Thorin is really lost it these days.
I'll say the on that one, whatever.
But like something is clearly making you laugh. It was just like the fact that he was going so deep into like the spirituality and mindfulness. So you're like, all right, this is just a joke. That's mainly what I'm getting here. Or is there anything specific? You know, I really just need like I'm trying to just make sure that there's not some crazy story that you have like in terms of like just going too far with like the yoga and mindfulness and all that stuff.
Well, I wouldn't say it went too far. Like he wouldn't do something that obviously we didn't want to do. But I mean, he really wanted to go to the sauna with us. So I remember one time like. So I was working out a lot in the gym back then, and I think everyone already said, like, no, Weldon, we don't want to go to the sauna with you. So
here's the thing, I'll actually defend him on this one, because to be fair, apparently...
Oh, we got to get the end. We got to get the end of that story.
He did live in Finland, and in Finland, to be fair, the sauna is like their default. It's a bit like Russians.
They
do it
love
a lot.
it.
Like that's how you calm down. So I don't think he wasn't saying it in some weird way, like, come on, guys, come on. So I'm sure there was a reason to it. Like, come on, what's the rest of the story?
Yeah, so basically... I think like double lift, bio, and Bjergsen already said no. So me and Hansa, we kind of said no as well. And then me and Hansa went to the gym one night, and yeah, I mean we were working out, and then Weldon comes up with towels to the gym, and he's like, "Okay, guys, the sauna is ready." And me and Hansa are just like, I guess. He already brought the towels. I mean, I guess we'll go to the sauna.
Oh, wait a minute. This is the Foffer's whole time in TSM, Dom. He didn't want to do it. Everyone else said they wouldn't do it. Doublelift probably. The second Weldon said it got those crazy fucking eyes. Like, bug. I was like, what the fuck, dude? I'm not doing that. Just went to start watching anime. And then he, in the end, just felt obliged to do it because the motherfucker brought towels. He was like, oh, he's brought the towels and everything. What can I do? He said, you're too nice a guy, Svenskeren. You weren't cut out for TSM, mate. They're evil. You're trying to make, you don't like that guy in the new Star Wars. Like, they're trying to make it as a good stormtrooper. It doesn't work, mate. They're evil. You have to get the fuck out.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was a pretty nice time hearing some well-known stories about Finland, all naked in the sauna.
Okay.
Not gonna lie, it was a nice time.
You didn't expect that ending now, did you, Dom? You didn't think the story ended that way now, did you?
No,
that it
no.
actually turned out to be fun.
He's like, actually, it helped me a lot, and you know, I felt a lot more calm going into the next day of work, and you know, I would recommend it to anyone in the future. It's like, what the fuck? I thought you were like, I thought this shit ruined the team, but I mean, the thing that's so weird is like when you were thinking, when you were talking about that situation of like asking all the players. The thing that I would say is, like, when you ask Doublelift the question, you never know how he feels about it because he always looks like he just heard the most hilarious joke ever. Like, if you look at Doublelift, just the way that he appears, you don't know if something, like, if he's talking about the most awful thing that ever happened to him, he'll always just have that, like, hidden smile where his, like, cheeks are raised, and it looks
just
like he's...
nervous laugh.
Well, it looks like he's just about to just crack the fuck up. So, like, I mean, maybe you can't even blame Weldon on that one. I wouldn't know if he actually wanted to go to the sauna or not, so... I mean,
who knew that more, Dom? It turned out in the end, Weldon's secret technique involved blowing hot air into people's faces. The jokes write themselves. The jokes fucking write themselves, mate. You're doing it, Weldon, not me.
So after TSM, I mean, so after 2017, you joined C9 2018. You seem to just be enjoying the atmosphere and the environment a lot more on C9. Like, I think it's just a more laid back approach to things. Was that actually the case? Like, how did you feel moving on to C9? Like, you've been in both organizations. These are two of the top organizations we have. What are the differences really between like how the organizations are managed, or like why did you enjoy C9 more? Is it just because of the rough stint at the end of TSM? Like, you just needed to change something, or was there anything specific about the Cloud9 environment that just made you like more comfortable?
Well, it's just a lot more freedom and a lot less stressful, I think. Like, the scrims as well were just more, I mean, it's just easy to say, like, more relaxed. It wasn't as stressful. Not everyone is getting watched under the microscope, I guess, for every
do you
mistake.
have to maintain like a certain, not a literal number, but do you have, in TSM, essentially, do you have to sort of like be winning most of the scrims? Is that kind of the environment that's expected? Like, is there something wrong if you're losing scrims and then people will come in and like go over it in detail? Like, is that a real thing? I've heard similar things, basically.
Pretty sure, but I mean, if you're losing against teams that you're supposed to be beating, even though it's scrimmages, then it's gonna make the upper management feel pretty shitty and like embarrassed, I guess. So I would say that's definitely a thing, yeah.
Do you actually subscribe to that line of reasoning? Because I know other teams, for example, will just be like, hey, scrimming is scrimming. As long as we're getting something out of the scrim, we don't really give a fuck if it's wins or losses. So, like, what's your opinion on, like, if you're losing to teams that you think you're better than in scrims, like, do you think that that's always bad? Do you think that like, are you one of those players that gets, like, frustrated by it? Like, you know, tries to fix it on the spot, or are you more okay with, like, losing some scrims here or there if you feel like the team's still improving?
To me, it really just depends what we're trying to get out of the scrims. So if we're actually practicing new stuff against a worse team, then I don't really mind losing. But if we're playing our comfort picks and we're still losing, then I think that's a problem, probably. So I think that's just how I view it. As long as you're learning, like, if you're actually playing the scrims to learn something, I don't really care.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess...
What is your perspective on Reaper drafting? Because here's the thing, right? Of all the moments in your career, the one that everyone always forgets, they just delete it from their brain, I guess the spring split doesn't matter, was spring split last year when you were in the semis against TSM. And you basically had them on the ropes, mate. Like, you even in the third game had them
2-0.
almost beaten. Like, that was done. Like, that was over. It would have been Team Liquid vs Cloud9 in both finals. It would have been... Instead, you guys let them almost win the fucking championship. Like, this was one to me where... I know I go on about it a lot, but that was one of those series where the drafts towards the end of that series, I think, are like criminal. Some of those are like so... But, like, I can tell they're putting players in positions that they wouldn't choose to be in if they had any choice. Mm-hmm. That's part speculation, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a long time, and I kind of want to block this memory out of my mind.
Not good, eh?
But,
yeah, well, we're not letting you do it, so tell us about it.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
I don't I don't remember too much if it was the drafting or anything that was really poor in that series. I just remember us like kind of stressing out too much when we lost our first game, because we're supposed to 3-0 that series. I remember like the third game, we had a huge lead. We got Baron. We were like sieging on bot, and then Bjergsen and Carly just managed to kill us all, even though we had. I remember we drafted a Tom Kench Cillian comp, and we also did this in scrims. And the one thing we said going into the game is, okay, guys, don't use your ult and Tom Kench W on the same person at the same time. And then somehow it managed to happen in the game, and Sneaky died, and we kind of lost the game. So I think after that game, Reboot got really pissed, and I mean...
So you motherfuckers are going to learn today. I'm pulling out my most nightmare mode draft. Here you go, motherfucker. How you like now? Let's see you in game 5. And he just lets you play it. Goes out.
I don't really know why, but he got really pissed after we lost that game 3, and I think he started yelling at Cecil or something, and...
In English? Just getting angry?
Well, I mean, he better be yelling in English, because I don't think that yelling at Zazel in Korean would do any good. Like,
maybe that's just how he gets it off, you know. Oh, I was just saying, I was just annoyed with how the game went. Yeah, it's just cursing you out. I mean,
like, let's talk about some of those drafts, because a lot of the things I just can't imagine a jungler like advocating for. So in game 4, because I talked, it's actually funny that I remember this draft. I mean, it's mainly just because I talked to Cadian last week, and he was talking about how ridiculous it was to him that you guys first picked Jarvan with Rek'Sai up at that time. And just, like, you were forced to play Jarvan into Rek'Sai, and then the next game, you just have to early pick Rek'Sai, and you get counterpicked with Kindred.
Oh, and don't forget, Rek'Sai was by far the best Acadian champion. That was like the dream when he got that champion.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, how did you end up with Jarvan first pick overall in that game? Like, that can't be something that you wanted, you know?
I don't really recall too much about what was the meta or, like, the draft pick ban back then. I feel like we probably just really needed to engage. That's probably why we pick it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to me, I think that was the Niski set game, right? Where game 4. And I think that was the bigger question in that draft than picking Jarvan.
Yeah, true.
Because here's the thing, to you, right? I understand why the others don't think it's the end of the world. Like, some of those players have never had that much success in their whole careers, mate. Some of them are in their first big team, or it's been years since they've won anything. But, like, not only did you come from TSM, but, like, because you've been kicked out and scapegoat, like, if I were you, that'd be life or death, that series to me. That'd tear me up if I lost that one.
I think that's one of the series that hurt me the most. Like, I was gone for, like, a week after. Just really hit me hard, because I felt like we were really, really good at that time, and I felt like we could win the championships, but...
I mean, the rumor was in scrims even you were beating TSL, Team Liquid, right? So
we're demolishing everyone. We're demolishing everyone in scrims, but I mean, then I think we kind of lost it after the game 3. Like, and we really thought that we were just going to 3-0 the series, and I mean, I guess our mental was just too bad going into the series. Like, we thought we're unbeatable, kind of.
Do you think? Yeah, I mean, I just would ask you, like, do you think that this is any of the problem that they're having right now? Obviously, you have still Licorice and Niski on C9 as well as Reaper, the coach. Do you think that, like, they have fragile mental right now as well? Because, I mean, you saw Cloud9 absolutely, like, dumpster everyone in the spring. Just, they fucked up everyone up the entire time, and even the first half of summer. And then as soon as they started losing, it just became kind of a snowball effect where it's like, the drafts look weird, the play looks worse. Do you feel like this team is, like, kind of are like tilters in a way?
I don't know if the tilt does. It's possible, but I mean, I just know one of the flaws with Reaper is that once you start winning a lot, then he's gonna get really cocky, and he's gonna start thinking that you can just pick any pick and it's gonna be good. So I know in past experiences, once we start winning a lot, then we would always just play a lot of random picks and scrims, and then we just become a lot worse team. And then all of a sudden we go on stage and we're like, just a shit team, because in our practice we've just been practicing all these garbage picks that we're not really playing on stage, but then we're just wasting our practice basically. I don't know if they've been doing that. I remember this split, they're playing like a lot of Senna, Wukong bot lanes, and then after they did that, they just started looking a lot worse. So I feel like they probably experimented way too much in scrims again.
Yeah, it was Senna bot lane. I remember they were doing like other extremely like weird stuff. Like they did well, I guess it's not extremely weird, but like the Sona Lux was like the draft that came out right after that. And, you know, ever since that loss to Team Liquid, it just felt, you know, pretty sketchy from there on out. I guess what I would ask you then is, what do you think the problem with Cloud9 is? Because this team, absolutely, like, I'm sure that in spring it felt like these guys were just completely unbeatable, and I guess they were. And now, like, even though they technically 3-0'd you last weekend, it wasn't like a clean 3-0. Like, that's not a dominant team's performance, and they lost to FlyQuest as well in the same weekend.
Pretty convincingly.
Yeah, pretty convincingly as well. So what's your perception as a competitor? Like, what happened to Cloud9? Because I've heard that they're still doing super well in scrims. I don't know if you scrim them at all when you guys were on opposite sides of the bracket or whatever, or maybe you haven't scrimmed them at all in playoffs, but what's your perception of their strength and what went wrong with them?
Yeah, well, like I just said, I'm pretty sure they just started practicing way too many garbage picks, and it just messes with your team's fundamentals when you just... Because practicing the Zona lock spot lanes probably just did a lot worse for them than it did good. I don't know how many games they put into it, but I feel like they did a lot of games, and it's just such a different playstyle that you can't really use it for anything else but Zona locks. And also the same with Senna Wukong, where your support is farming, or like your AD carry is on support. Like, it just messes with your team dynamics so much. The same with playing Yumi as well, like you can see against FlyQuest. It's just such different playstyles that you can't really use it, the practice you learn on those, as like regular comps. So
you think it just let other people catch up? Because I mean, it seemed like in recent weeks, like in the last like 3 weeks, you know, after the Sono Lux game, they were playing more of their standard stuff, but they still don't look like a cohesive team. So do you think that time just allowed like other teams to catch up, or they themselves lost confidence in their abilities as a team? Like, where do you really like place the issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a mix of both. Losing confidence, thinking that because in spring they were really unbeatable, so they got away with doing a lot of mistakes because other teams just wouldn't punish, thinking that like Cloud9 must know something that you don't if they're going for these things. But then once you start challenging them and they're making mistakes and you actually punish it, like, I mean, the games are going to look a lot more winnable.
The thing is, if you actually think about it, though, Dom, like, even when we had them on our show, all the shows that I had Cloud9 members on during the spring, I have to say, they themselves would be the ones who'd reference that they were winning all the scrims all the time. Like, we weren't the ones always prying and asking them and trying to get, like when we were trying to get shit about TSM out of Svenskeren here earlier, they were always volunteering it because, like, they would even build it as the narrative of that's why they're like so unbeatable. They were like, because they were even going out of their way to say how, like, in scrims they'd try experiment with different things because they were just winning like 5 out of 5 scrims against people. So I think they themselves had that as like some sort of weird like security blanket thing that, like, if they're winning all the scrims, everything's fine. But I actually personally think that is a weakness. Like, I get why people do it. Obviously, if you're losing, you're gonna in some sense feel something is wrong. But it's actually more famous. Like, I don't know if Svenskeren can confirm this. Most of the greatest European teams, the ones that like the Expecke teams and fucking obviously G2 and like all the versions, those teams were more famous for like, they were always fucking around in scrims and they would like not take it seriously, but then they'd just beat you in the stage match. So I actually find it weird that like, as we're saying, Cloud9, sounds like some of these teams like they're unduly obsessed with winning all their scrims. I don't know why that's such a big deal personally.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really comment on that specifically, but I will say that from other players' accounts, like, they were really terrified of this team based on scrim results. Like, you could tell that TL, like, when they talked about them, they're like, yeah, I mean, we literally went 0-10 to Cloud9 in scrims this week in one of their, like, squad episodes. So it seems like that put the fear of God in the other teams as well.
I think it probably also had the aura for the other teams. You're right. Like, if someone feels unbeatable, you also sort of in a fucked up way. It's like what everyone used to do versus the Koreans. You go into the game thinking you've half lost the game. Like, you don't go into it fresh thinking like there's a chance for anything. Like, that's kind of true, right, Svenskeren?
Yeah, for sure. That really messes with a lot of teams' mentality. When they're like 10-0 in the spring split, you're like, I guess they're kind of unbeatable. I mean, we'll just try our best. You don't really go into the game with like hopes of like winning. You're just like, I'm gonna try my best, and if we lose, then whatever. They're already like winning everything.
Isn't it also freeing in a way though? I mean, I remember watching a Golden Guardians episode, and we memed it a little bit on one of my live viewings, but one of the things that Closer said was he was like, do you think that anyone like actually believes, like any fan out there actually believes that Golden Guardians have a chance for a C9? It's so fucking easy to play. Like, just go out there and play the game. Like, there's nothing to lose. Do you think that actually kind of benefits you at all, or do you think that it's just the effect of being versus a team that's so good is like more damaging than like the ability to potentially play free?
It's really player to player based.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know personally I perform a lot better if there's no pressure on me, and it's just so much easier. If you don't go into the game thinking about other stuff, you just like, okay, I'm gonna try my best. If we lose, whatever. If we win, hell yeah, it's gonna feel fucking great. But I mean, some people get really stressed out if they're against a good team, thinking that they're just gonna get demolished, already before the game is beginning. So it's just player to player. Yeah. I can't really.
Did you know that you performed better when not under pressure before joining TSM, mate? That sounds like that might have been, might have taken a different route in your career.
Well, I think before I joined TSM, I was playing a lot better doing pressure as well, but it was just like a very different kind of pressure because there's the pressure of just my teammates only, and like
Forgiven.
Our team. Kind of, yeah. I mean, even before Forgiven as well. Like, I mean, I think I played pretty well in the playoffs back in Europe, but it was just that joining TSM, there was a fan base, something that I never had before in my career, was like the fans actually cared about what you're doing and how you're performing. But yeah, I mean, I just didn't have that.
Listen, Dom brought it up, not me, but if that door's open, why the fuck did you do that stupid ultimatum with Forgiven? Like, listen, real talk, right? You won those championships in TSM. That's great. Okay, I know fans don't tend to consider NA as big as you, but you still won the championship a few times. You went to Worlds, etc. But that team, actually, I know it had flaws, but like when you get one thing I've noticed in sports and in team sports in general is whenever you get with another really good player, unless it's just impossible to work with them, you should try and stay together. Like, it's like, that's why to me the idea of Bjergsen and Double have split up, I think they're idiots personally. Like, I know why TSM picked one, but if I were them, I would have said, like, listen, I've had enough times carrying the team by myself. Like, that guy has to be here. Like, I have to know there's another really good player. Like, you and Forgiven were the studs in that team. Like, you were probably the best both at your roles. If anyone doesn't know, the real secret of that Unicorns Love secret is they just banned out both Svenskeren and Forgiven at the they started out banning Forgiven, and then that didn't work entirely. So they just banned Svenskeren's League Sin as well. And then when there was nothing available for the two carries, yeah, they lost the series. So, like, if people don't know, basically the story goes, Svenskeren and maybe some of the others just said, like, right, it's him or me. And the problem is, Forgiven was the MVP at the time. So the SKO just came to Forgiven and basically just said, like, they're saying it's them or you. So do you want to stay? And we'll just build a team around you. And because Forgiven is either a liar or he's just fucked up in his head, like he thinks he's a Game of Thrones character, he was like, but it wouldn't be honourable for me to take another man's job. So I must go out into the land and walk realm as a nomad and a Ronin with no master. Like, he made some like retarded story like that, right? So was that true? Because he implied that he chose to leave, but because it had to be you or him. Like, why couldn't you just figure out your differences? I think he's a totally unreasonable person, by the way. So what are your thoughts?
Okay, so this is like really fucking long ago. I don't remember if SK actually asked him to rebuild a team.
Okay.
I don't really remember the ultimatum as well. I just remember going into after we lost that series, I'm like, okay, if we can't even beat Unicorns of Love, I'm not going through this pain. And I mean, the conditions back then were just so horrible that
of course, yes.
We couldn't even do any VOD reviews because he just thought like he played the game perfectly, so there was nothing to review. So we were just stuck as 4-man. Like before that, we were playing really well in Europe, SK Gaming, and was it 14? And then he came on in 15. And I mean, we were really well playing as a team because we just knew how to actually play as a team.
Yeah.
And
you had a good read on the meta. Yeah, you had it all locked down. Yeah.
Yeah, we had it rated, and he was really well, like facilitating our team, like kind of as a coach, even though he was a player. But I mean, then we kind of changed with getting Forgiven on, like a more mechanical, gifted player and more solo play. Like he wanted to carry the game by himself. And I mean, that just kind of messed with our team dynamic because we as a team were just really playing really well because we knew how to play for each other and just sacrifice for each other. But then, I mean, we shifted to a more just skill-based team, whereas it doesn't really matter if your team plays off, like you're going to carry the game.
And by the way, for people who don't know, he had a very extreme version of like the star player mentality. As in, he would literally come, no joke, and tell like the mid laner, that Fox guy, like, yeah, get the fuck out, I'm taking this wave, mate. Like, because his vision was like, you give everything to me and I'll win the game. Like, that was Forgiven in this era.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's
you didn't like that? You weren't a fan?
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, I wasn't a fan of not improving as a team. I mean, you can see that now as well, I guess, with my EG team. I feel like if you're winning because just one guy is popping off and it doesn't matter what the rest of the team is doing, then it doesn't even feel like a win in the end. Like, you're just like hoping this guy is going to carry you. And as a team, it feels really shitty when you're not able to win the game through team play.
Yeah, I actually remember that this is kind of one of the things that Svenskeren and I bonded over back in the day in like 2015 when we would talk about champion picks. He was playing in Europe, I was playing in NA, and we would just talk about like our selfish AD carries. It's like at the time I was playing with Piglet, he was playing with Forgiven, and it was just like a therapy session for both of us. It's like, what this guy says, I can only come bot. Like, I don't know what to do.
It was really extreme back then.
Yeah, it was super extreme for both of us. But I just remember like the fact that even European players were more willing to like reach out and like discuss champions with like people that they respected. I think that's like a really healthy mentality and something that I wanted to get into because I talked with LS a little bit about it. It seems like this is still the culture in Europe where European players just want to be the best they can be, and even if they think that they're better than you, they'll still always try to learn from anyone that they perceive to have success. And I just experienced it with you directly where you would reach out to me specifically and be like, hey, like you're playing like Nunu and like these champions. Like, do you actually like why do you think these champions are so OP for you? And stuff like that. And apparently European players are still reaching out to LS and things like that. But it doesn't seem like players that play in NA do the same where they're actually trying to up their game at all costs. It seems like everyone's kind of more private about everything they do. Have you experienced that at all? Like since you came here with like the culture, are people not as willing to like reach out to everyone and improve? Do you think that this limits the region in terms of skill, or like what are your opinions on it?
I mean, I can just kind of speak from my personal experiences, and I mean, I've always been very open of adding people and talking to them and asking about like what their opinion of stuff is, because I kind of don't like being the practicing new stuff if I don't think it's like I don't know if it's good or not. So like I'm wasting my time practicing something. So I kind of want to get somebody else's perspective on it, like another pro player. It's a really good perspective. So
you're just offshoring the work to them. You just get them to do it. And you go, does that work? Right, I might use it then. Right, you test my food. Is it good? Throw it in the fucking trash bin.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I know there's like a meta where people want to add each other and get information without giving any information out. So that makes it pretty hard.
Style, right? Okay.
Basically, yeah. You're like baiting them in. Like, okay, so I think Leeson is really good right now. What do you think? What do you think about this and this pick? So you give them something really obvious, and then they like, so they think that you gave them some information, you know. So it's their turn to give information.
It's like, you know that Lee Sin champion going on the queues. It worked for me.
Kind of, yeah.
Do you still like reach out to like European players? Like, do you talk to any pro junglers in Europe right now and like run ideas past them, or like ask them like how they make certain picks work?
Yeah, recently I was talking a lot to Gilius because they were kind of smurfing and it's got Gilius time. So
yeah,
I mean the people I have history with, I don't like I reach out to them if I'm in question of anything.
Yeah. So here's another question since we're talking about just NA in general here that I've been wanting to ask a pro player, which essentially is about like. There was an interview that happened with Broxa. I'll just kind of preface it like this. It was an interview that happened with Broxa that he was talking about how NA teams pretty much seem doomed before they actually go anywhere. The fans are like hypercritical of the teams and like the kind of like doom meta of like NA is like fucking doomed no matter what. The pressure coming in from I guess like streamers like myself and LS puts like a negative mindset on the region, and it's like the reason why we can't improve. Do you think that like there is actually like like the outside pressure from everyone, the fact that everyone has been kind of beaten down by the failures of NA year after year is like harming the region, or do you believe it to be kind of like the thing where we're just simply not as good as other regions? And then like I guess the second part of that question, I'll let you answer that, and the second part of it would just be kind of related to like, do you think that the criticism and like the speculation is fair based on the fact that NA players are known to be paid a fuck ton of money? So compared to Europeans, like you have a team like Mad Lions, and the whole team of Mad Lions might not be getting paid even what like one player in NA is being worth. So yeah, I'll kind of just send that one over to you, and just I'd love to hear your take on that situation. Like, is the like doomed culture of NA affecting the region at all?
I mean, I can't really say. I feel like it's not really fair to say that just because people think your region is bad, it's okay to be bad. Like, I feel like that's not really how it is. So I kind of disagree with that statement. I know a lot of people do think NA is bad, but people have thought NA is bad forever, like since season 2 or something. So, I mean, maybe it's more extreme now, where everyone thinks NA is bad, but like, I mean, I know people thought NA was bad since forever, so it's never really been an excuse, I think.
From Europe, people have thought that NA has been bad from forever, but you know, for us Americans, we had some hope in like season 5, season 6, you know, or like season 4 even, you know. At least your team gave us some hope in season 6 with TSM. You know, we thought we might be able to do something. But I guess the second part of it was just like about like player salary and things like that. Do you think that this is something that actually hurts our region? The fact that like there's so much to do with money about like here, right? So for example, academy players have insane fucking buyouts. Johnson's buyout was like $300,000. This guy played 4 games in academy and lost them all, allegedly. Obviously, this is just coming through articles that I read.
Sure.
But like, do you think that this is like an issue that's holding NA back? That so much money is at stake and players are not actually able to like be developed freely, traded freely, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, it's just way more professional, I would say here, more stick to the rules and stuff. Whereas I know in Europe, I feel like a lot more times where players respect each other, they'll just want to play on a team together. But here it's more like PR, and you have to respect the contracts, and people just set buyout limits. Whereas I think in Europe, it's somehow players that like each other just end up on the same team a lot more often. Whereas people in NA are a lot more scared of the poaching rules, I feel like. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that's a big difference as well.
The most extreme version has to be the OG one this year, where, I mean, the story's out there. Like, basically, it was implied some of those players took pay cuts so that Upset could join the team and they could have, in theory, better players because they wanted to win the championship. They were sick of being 3rd place or 4th place. Like,
yeah, so
I've never heard a story. Dude, I've never heard a story like that happen in NA. Like, I've never heard someone go, right, I'm going to go from like this team and take a pay cut and go to another team and gamble it. Because in that scenario, by the way, the reason why that's admirable, I know everyone's going to laugh now because they came last, but the reason why it's actually admirable is you're not just like taking a gamble on the team. You're even giving up your finances to sacrifice to the other person. You're actually saying, I'm going to invest in you and try and win with you. It didn't work, but I just can't imagine anyone in LCS doing that. For me, I actually think the reason LCS has gotten worse is the franchising era, because it's gotten, this is the whole reason I've told people this before. This is why franchising was invented in the American sports. It's because what they realized is instead of trying to beat each other, which is what like European soccer is, like Club A and Club B, they want to destroy the other one and they want to have all the money and all the players and they don't want the other guy to have it. Whereas the vision in America is like, the product is the league, not the team. So you want the whole league to flourish and as many teams to be good as possible. So the whole point of all those salary caps and all the funding aspects is every team has to have star players. That's what LCS is like. Like, you go and look at the worst teams in LCS. They're overpaying some really good player who could be on a better team. Like, the weirdest thing for me about LCS is like, look at his team. His team was the 3rd best. In some people's minds, they thought they were the secret 2nd best in spring. And they had Kumo as their top laner. Now, that's not about dissing Kumo, but it's like, why is he a starter for EG? Like, in that scenario, it should be Solo or some other, like, licorice. They should have bought one of those names. But
I mean, Solo was out of the league. Solo was out of the league.
Exactly, I never understood that one personally, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that that's something like a salary cap, or do you think it's like too hard to get players that are actually good? Because I mean, even these academy players are having massive fucking buyouts. So, do you think that like the fact that, you know, there's so much money in the game, like players are worth so much, is actually holding NA back, that people aren't able to actually freely go to the teams that they perceive to be like good fits for them?
Yeah, I mean, they might be holding the region back a bit, that you can't play with the players you want to play with because people just expect way too much money. So definitely it might have some effects. I mean, I don't think it's like one of the big issues though, that people are getting paid too much so they just play shit, I guess. I don't know. Okay. I never felt like that's been an issue.
I guess what I would ask you then is like, what do you think NA's biggest problems are? Because you've been playing here for a long time. Obviously the results haven't matched up. I mean, there were some years where you could say that we were better than what the results showed, but in general there hasn't been that much success from NA. So like, how do you like? Where do you really align? Because there's a million excuses that people have, right? It's people are getting paid too much. It's the fucking ping. It's the fact that we have too many imports and like people can't speak the same language.
Solo queue is a million angles.
Yeah. There's a million angles. So where do you really like fall down on the issues within North America?
I mean, to me, it's always, I kind of viewed it as just people don't like to practice as much. And I feel like me and my teams, when we really looked the strongest, is when we've had the most practice and people were dedicating the most amount of their time to the game.
Is there a secret to making that environment then? Like if I gave you $1 billion tomorrow and your only goal is like make NA as a region better, right? Assuming we don't use the billion to buy the Shy and Lucky, we're actually trying to make the region better. What would you change in the environment to make it like better practice or better quality practice or more often it works out? What would you change?
I mean, I would start by just importing 1,000 European players or 1,000 Chinese players to just come here and play the solo queue.
That was
Because
actually an idea I really said on a talk show. People think I was joking. I actually meant it. If all these orgs have the money they do, some of these guys, by the way, are tiny little streamers or like guys in solo queue in Korea or Europe. Like they'd come over if you paid them to be in your streaming house or whatever, and it would make the quality of solo queue better.
definitely, because right now, if I'm trying to try hard in solo queue, I have to wait 20 minutes for each game, and even then the quality is like not secure to be that high quality. And yeah, I mean, there's just not enough players here to really. That's why you see a lot of people just smurfing, and they're not even trying to get like rank 1 because the queue times are just way too long if you're even trying to like climb, and there's just not enough players to actually support like the high-end solo queue.
Yeah. Oh, is this something that like you yourself have kind of just like because I know you used to always be at the top of the ladder, right? I mean, I think you're pretty high up there now, but for like a lot of the split, it felt like you were just kind of like going through the motions, like playing the game, but like you just kind of like it felt like you were kind of beaten down by the fact that solo queue was so bad here. Did it eventually like affect you, and you just kind of viewed it as not good practice because you were somebody that was always top 5 or like top 10, and you'd always make like pushes for rank 1, either hit rank 1 or get really really fucking close. And then this year, I was playing against you a decent amount, so like where did you really fall down on solo queue? Like, did you take it less seriously this year because of like all the queue times and everything?
I mean, in Spring Split, I hit like 1k LP and then I decayed in the off season, and right now I'm 1.1k LP as well. So like, I feel like I can always hit top ranks in solo queue if I want to, if I'm tryharding. But a lot of times it's just really is not worth it. If I'm trying to learn new champions, I don't want to spend 20 minutes in queue to play a game of Lilia where I'm just gonna
Run it down.
I'm kind of gonna run it down, So like, I'd rather just spend like 1 minute in queue and I can get in 5 games of Lilia at the time I can get in 2 games in like challenge, So I mean, it's just minimaxing, I guess. Sometimes the games in high elo is just really tragic because you get people on off roll, and then whoever has more on roll people just win. And yeah, I mean, this just kind of sucks.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. You have a take on this, Thorin? Because I got another topic, but I just wanted to know.
It's like
you had
to me, it's not even, I'm not even like trolling when I say that. The premise would be this, is like the whole point of franchising is, again, as a region, we want to be one of the better regions. We want to be profitable. We want to have like increased viewership. So what I would do is, if all these teams, there's 10 teams, they all collectively got together and said, right, we're all going to recruit 3 streamers or who are like high elo from any other region. Could be from Europe, China, Korea, whatever. They just have to be willing to come to America, eligible for the visa, and they'll come. I'll put them in a streaming house. They produce content, which obviously I'll market on my side channel, and I'll make money from that, whatever angle you're going to take. But the idea is, the implied value of the move is now all of a sudden, if we all take 3, and that's 30 extra players who are going to play solo queue all day long. And all they do, remember, is play solo queue. They're not trying out from our team. I mean, you can do that if you want, if they turn out to be good. But this is just literally, collectively, we'd make basically a class of talent to make solo queue better. Because if people don't know, this is kind of actually what happened in the game Overwatch. So in Overwatch, unsurprisingly, Korea became the best. They had the best solo queue and all the same shit. But because the Overwatch League is like LCS, but if all the regions were in one, all the best Koreans came over to America and lived in America and were playing Overwatch. So when they would then play on the ladder after their scrims, it meant it was like being on the Korean ladder almost. It wasn't quite, but it was close enough. Like, you would have so many players there, you could get quality practice. And so, like, I have always thought there's got to be some creative solution to improving that angle, because even though everyone makes it sound like, but it's just solo queue, it's like, no, that's like the lifeblood of the extra time you're going to put into the game. You're already going to scrim anyway. But if you imagine a Michael Jordan type character who puts in the extra hours, in NA, what's he putting those hours into? Like, it's a waste of time, as Svenskeren says. It sounds cool if like the rookie or the shy is sat there and they play like 5 extra solo queue games in Korean solo queue. It's not cool if they sat there for 20 minutes, they load into a game and their AD carry was an auto-filled like one trick from jungle and they've lost the game already. Like even the rookie would throw the fucking PC out the window if that happened. Like, these guys don't tolerate that shit. Like, I can totally understand why people like, Jensen's probably the best example ever. That guy just mails in solo queue like every fucking split now. Like, and wasn't it years since he's cared? Because you know what? He comes into the real LCS games. It doesn't matter. It hasn't affected his level at all. That's a really bad sign if someone who, in theory, used to love fucking practicing League of Legends doesn't even want to play it for fun outside of his job. Like, that's a really bad sign for me with the environment. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Dom? Would it work?
I mean, I think it would definitely add value. Like, I don't think it could hurt. Like, so, I mean, that's where I'm at. I think that also just like a lot of the fundamental changes that Riot has done to the game have kind of hurt NA even more than other regions. Like when they increased the queue times that you get in high low, like I know even in low challenger, you're getting like 25-minute queues sometimes, which is just absolutely unacceptable, right? Like how are you supposed to even do anything with it? And then people will complain about, oh, why don't streamers play high elo? Like, oh, streamers are just like ruining solo queue because all they do is smurf. It's like, yeah, because you can't find a fucking game. Like, it's not even profitable to stream in this region anymore. I tried actually doing something where I co-streamed LCS earlier this split, and then I would try to snipe pro players after the games, like when they were in solo queue. I'd play on a challenge account and snipe players. I actually ran into, that was when I was running into Svenskeren actually, a decent amount, but the game quality, it just take too long. You lose all your fucking viewers, and it's like, okay, no one's gonna wait for 25 minutes in between a game. Imagine you start with 10K viewers, and 3 games in, you're at like 3K or like 2K. And it happens to like every streamer. I mean, you watch TF Blade, he smurfs and piss low. Like, oh man, like I'm doing my 75th unranked challenger with 97% win rate plus, like restart if I lose a single game. He does like his own thing, right? Okay. And he's at 15K viewers the entire time. Right now, he's like, all right, no mic, no cam, try hard to rank 1. Currently, like, rank like 35 right now. He's just fucking sitting in queue. You hear the music. Everyone in chat is like fucking flaming him. Like, dude, you're so washed up. You used to be rank 1, man. Like, now you can't even fucking win at rank 98. Like, you're never going to be good again. All this type of shit. And then he's getting 4K viewers. So what the fuck is the trade-off? Like, no one wants to actually play when the system is like this. Honestly, like, I think it made sense because there were low-quality, high-elo games. But my perception is that shit was better. I liked playing with shorter queues and actually being able to find games compared to whatever this shit is now. This shit isn't worth playing in North America. And yeah, if they were able to add more people, or like there was more added value or anything, man, like they could make solo queue worth more. Like if people tried more when they actually had the like backpacks and stuff like that. Like when there was challenger backpacks, challenger jackets, like those little like physical incentives. You think it's a joke, but I honestly...
I know that listen, I can totally tell that some people would try hard. Like, if you're just a solo queue player, yeah, it'd be cool to get that. It's just, to me, that really showed where Riot's head is at. What did they come up with as their ultimate reward? Something that, like, a little 9-year-old American kid would want who's from, like, California. Like, oh, Dad, cool, I got a new jacket and the trainers with lights in them. Like, we're the fucking adults. Like, where are the rewards for actual adults? What do you get?
I mean, I noticed an increase in solo queue when those things happen. If they did it like every split, or they had some incentive, or there was like, you know, more like even sure. Now, right? Like the scouting grounds is kind of like structured weird, where people don't really view it as a real path to pro. Getting high rated in scouting grounds, because now there's a team aspect. So it's like, why am I gonna try hard in solo queue when I could just join a team? There's so many like different angles that I feel like the solo queue here is like really devolved. So I think
definitely a factor putting people off for sure. Yeah. Plus, I've heard when Bjergsen's backpack arrived, like all the TSM players, like immediately jumped into it and followed it. Yeah, okay. Like, this is what we're supposed to go at, Bjerg. He was like, not until the game starts.
All right, that was the obvious one. Come on, man. Like, you really had to.
I know. Whatever.
Jesus Christ.
No.
If I can say something too, I think like one of the things like I dislike about the solo queue is that like, okay, I wait 20 minutes to find a game, and then some like. I think like 8 out of 10 of my games, I'm jungling against some guy that is either like low tier master, or he's like first time in jungle, he's off roll, he's autofilled in jungle, or he's just like a one trick that's banned out, and like it just feels really useless for me because I'm not learning too much. But and then the 2 games where I'm against like another LCS pro in jungle, like the game is just so much more competitive. I'm being challenged, I'm learning stuff from solo queue, but then just way too many of the games I'm just against some guy that has no clue what he's doing, and I mean the practices feels awful then. So like the goal about moving people over that would actually like dedicate their life to just playing the solo queue would like make the region a lot better, I feel like. And also just another point is like the ping is just really terrible. Like I mean people have memed this forever, but like I'm in LA and I'm playing 53 ping, which is like the best you can like the absolute best you can get, and then I'm playing against other people from LA who's playing on 70 ping, and I'm just like 20 ping difference. Like people in Korea play with 8 ping, so like we're playing like 10 times more ping than they have, you know. So
Yeah.
it's kind of insane, yeah.
Yeah. No, actually, I appreciate that you guys put me on that internet because I was one of those people playing on 74 ping, and like apparently EG lives in the
It's
same.
so unplayable.
Yeah. EG lives in the same building, so one of their managers actually hit me up. They like saw me playing solo queue with 74 ping. They're like, you can get like 53 if you change this weird ass internet service, which like it has its downs.
That's legit though that they just actually volunteered that information. That's cool of them.
Yeah, no, they hit me up, so I got to shout out EG on that one. They actually fixed my solo queue ping. Went from 74 to 53, so I mean it's.
But it's just crazy that you can play against people on 8 ping and NA, and I'm just feeling like there's nothing I could have done. He just has lower ping than me, so I'm deemed to get outplayed.
Yeah. What do you think about just like the angle we had Closer on the show, and he said that he's losing confidence in his mechanics from playing in NA. Like, did you feel like that at all? Did you lose confidence in like some of your Lisa mechanics, like playing on such high ping for so long?
I mean, definitely. Like a lot of times, I don't feel like I don't want to pick up the more mechanical champions because I don't get enough practice in solo queue. Like the ping is just too garbage. So like playing Nidalee is just really hard on high ping, but like you need a lot of games on these champions to really make it work in professional games. And I mean, I just can't get enough games on those because you only have 5 games in scrims, and then I would need like 10 games in solo queue as well. But the games in solo queue are just really terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, definitely I feel like some picks I just can't pick up because of the ping.
Dude, you know how brutal that is? Because obviously, like I said, when people were scapegoating you in TSM, everyone thinks now that you are just like fucking Danish Smithy. Like you just play like tank junglers, you control the game, you help your team. Like you used to be a stud, you used to be playing all the mechanical junglers. The whole thing was you used to be like a 1v1 jungler who just fucked up the other jungler. And that's why you didn't need to know where to put the wards, because you just killed him. You don't need to. That wasn't even the team. You were like awarding the good sense back then because you were killing the other team as well.
Yeah, I mean, the game was really different back then as well. And also just the European mindset of there wasn't really any coaches, so we weren't being questioned everything we're doing. But then coming to NA, like, I mean, I just remember being asked a lot about why I'm doing what I'm doing, and like this is not going to work on stage.
We've got to talk about this. Come on. Right, Dom, you've got to have some thoughts on this as well, because this is one thing I have a big problem with, right, is there's a lot of roles. I think an obvious one would be like AD carry, where I can totally see how the coaching staff could have a lot of input. Like, were you doing the right thing with your gold that you had here? Did you build the right items? Did you rotate correctly? But the idea that like coaching staff who maybe have never even played jungle to a competent level are going to ask junglers stuff like, what were you doing here? And then if you tell them what you were actually thinking, like, well, I was planning on like pathing up and doing that, they're like, no, that's incorrect. Like, how the fuck would you know? Like, jungles feel, mate. You don't have the wall hacks. You can't see the whole map. Like, it's intuition, feeling. What am I going? Like, sometimes you go for a play and it's a wrong play, but in the moment it was the right play, right? Like, that feels like something you can't like. You can't take basically jungle. It's like that old thing about a joke being like a frog. It's like when you try to like open it up and look inside, you kill it. Like when you try to take a joke apart from its ingredients, it's not funny anymore. So like in the same sense, you can't digest jungle like that way. You can't just like pick it apart like a surgeon.
I mean, I don't think anyone can, right? Like I think if you've played jungle at the competitive level,
right? There's a million variables you're trying to calculate.
Yeah, sure. And I think it should be more like a discussion. I really hated one thing that I felt like because I worked with Loco, and he kind of had like the same like TSM mindset, which I think carried over from what I've heard. TSM is very like critical on like jungle path. Like they'll just really dissect what you did in terms of jungling. And I remember when Loco would try to do that stuff with me and we'd like argue about jungle. It just felt like really worthless to me. Cause it's like, I mean, at that point it's like, okay, so I played professionally for 5 years. Like you've literally like seen me play jungle and shit on your teams. And now like I have to explain like why I'm like counter jungling raids here and like why I'm doing like all these little things. Like clearly the jungler is going to know more about those specifics than a coach, right? A coach, I think is never going to be as good at the individual roles as the players. The coach's overall job is like making it a cohesive unit, bring everything together and trying to figure out what a cohesive team is going to look like and like what the identity of the team is going to be, how they're going to play, matching everyone's mindset so they have like the same goals in game and like aligning all these really good players' views. And from what I've heard from people that have played from TSM, like Acadian as well, is that a lot of the time your path is under a microscope. I've even heard stories that like Reggie would tell you like, hey, just don't counter jungle anymore, Svenskeren. Like I've heard that this is like something that was actually said in a pro environment. So I personally hate that shit. Like, I feel like unless you've been a pro jungler before, or at least you've like played a lot of jungle, you like can get to challenger playing jungle, like you can't even talk about a lot of these things. But do you have a take on it yourself?
Well, I mean, I just know that once you start questioning your every move in the game, your confidence level is going to go down and you're not going to play as well. I know, like, back when I was on TSM, it was like a lot of the things we're talking about was like, you can't go for a play. Like, you have to make sure that when you go for a play, that the opposite side of the map isn't going to get fucked over. So it became so extreme that we couldn't go for a play ever because we always thought the other side was going to get more doomed than we would get, you know? So, like, I think that led to a lot of the passiveness at international stage. It was like, I mean, if you're going to go for a gank over here, then imagine the jungler is on the opposite side and he's just going to shit on our opponent. But we never thought we were going to get more, you know? Like, going for our own play. So, I mean, that's just really apparent. The TSM
like,
culture, I think.
This to me is the ultimate example. It doesn't happen as often now because now actually we've got some pretty decent coaches, at least in the West, and people who know the game and also who know their role and don't interject like this if they're not on TSM at least. But this was the ultimate thing back in the day when the first coaches came along, where I could tell all the ones that were frauds. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about in some of the things in the game, but I can tell when someone else doesn't as well. And the area where they would expose themselves is I could tell the people. I don't know if I'd include Loco in this, but I definitely think he definitely sometimes veered into this territory where they were just looking at the pathing of like the best Korean jungler and just taking it with none of the context and saying like, this is how you path. It's like, dude, that's like the one thing you can't just transpose. Like, you could maybe take a map rotation or a timing for when you went for something like Herald swap or something. You can't just take someone's whole jungle path with totally different champions and comps and ways of playing. You don't even know what that guy was thinking and just tell the other person like a roadmap, like, right, here's where you're going to go. You're going to go from here to here because you don't know why he did all those things. Like, does he do that every game? Maybe not. Maybe there's a call in the game that changed it. Maybe when he went to that top part that wasn't pathing, his top laner just said, like, if you set it up, the wave will be in this position. Like, you can't know any of those factors. And to me, when you criticize the jungler like that, that is the equivalent of saying to the mid laner, like, I didn't like the way you traded on the third minion there. It's like, I'm literally better than this of you. Like, you are just my coach or my manager or owner. Like, it's one thing if you want to tell me like the bigger details, like maybe I'm not communicating with my teammate. Maybe I did the wrong thing here. Maybe I itemized incorrect. But you can't tell me I traded wrong as the mid laner because I am just better at that one thing than you. So the problem I think is that the junglers, for whatever, you just take all this shit. They just go, oh, okay. And it sounds to me like they also, even if they don't do it intentionally, they make the team start to scrutinize that as well. So now, like, why the fuck would I want my AD carry commenting on my path? You shut the fuck up and left click minions, you can't.
I mean, I think
thinking my job.
I think the thing that I really hate is like,
that's like the guy on the assembly line putting the fucking like the biscuits into the box, going, tell you what, the fucking management's really fucked up our IPO. You know, like the stock is. What the fuck do you know? Put another cookie in a box, you daft shit. You don't have any difficulty in your job. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, for me, it's like what I always hated when people would like take an obvious mistake and then just like kind of like proves it. Like, it's really easy afterwards because a lot of times you're like you're playing off feel in the jungle, right? Like you're knowing like basic things like, hey, like I believe that he started.
You have to guess
like,
it, shit. Literally,
yeah, like,
you can't know, right?
He started red site. I assume that his raids are coming up around this timing, so I'm going to like be there for the counter jungle. Sometimes people do substandard pathing. Sometimes like the support will roam like top level fucking 3, and they'll contest you, and you'll just die and lose the whole fucking game. But you know, like all these factors, like it's really easy to see like, oh, well, this is where the pathing was fucked up. Like if I walk into the enemy jungle and I just get fucking killed instantly, like no shit, that was a mistake. But then when they try to like make it into like, oh, well, you know, like you just don't really know how to jungle. It's like I understand to like look for prio and things like that. It doesn't mean it's gonna be fucking perfect every game. And like trying to like micromanage a jungle path is super cringe to me because if you look at like mid laners, yeah, you're gonna find parts where people mismanage waves, people trade poorly. Yeah. They don't get the wave in on a certain timing. They get ganked by the jungler as a result. And it seems like the scrutiny isn't as much on a laner as it is on the jungler because the jungler is like...
Dude, imagine if they did what they did to him in TSM. Imagine if they did that to the mid laner. So they told the mid laner, right, you can never, ever be in an advanced position in the lane unless you have both brushes warded and you know no jungler can be coming. You could never play the fucking mid lane. You'd just be behind every game. Best case scenario, you'd be even if you're winning matchups. Like, that would be like telling the mid laner that. But like, as you say, they expect you to explain after the game why you did it, as though all times you had no map fog of war and you knew what everyone was going to do. You don't. It's actually the hardest role. I'll give someone an analogy. If anyone's ever played Counter Counter-Strike. The analogy for jungler is entry fragger. Because he's the guy who has to go in, he has to help other people succeed, and oftentimes he has to sacrifice himself. But he does it, by the way, knowing sometimes when he goes in that he's going into a doomed scenario. But he can't be the guy like the fucking mid laner in Korea where they just back right out and let the support support him down. They're like, oh, not this time, mate. And they're like, idiot, what are you doing? But it's never that guy getting face checking the brush. Like, that's the problem. And so in the same way, in Counter-Strike, in my opinion, what you need to do with the entry fragger is because he is the guy with the most uncertainty, he's got so much scrutiny, and he will actively have to sometimes fail to help someone else succeed. He's the guy I want to feel the most comfortable. Like, I would literally have all my team telling him all the time, don't worry if it goes badly early, don't worry if this happens, like, we're going to follow you up, like, we trust in your calls. These teams are doing the opposite, dude. They're just getting this guy and treating him as though we're all playing the same role and sort of 5 identically difficult roles. And then we're all just going to scrutinize this guy like that. Meanwhile, the guy in the top lane's like, oh, Poppy against Maokai again. It's like, what is he going to do wrong? Just fucking hit him with the wrong noodle. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Like, I think jungle is actually the most it's the most unappreciated role in the whole game. It's not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been that way. Forever.
Yeah.
Always has been. Always has been. It's all jungle diff. It always has been. But just going forward, I would just want to ask you about other junglers that you respect in the league.
Clip channel, just take that clip because that rant there was a banger. That was like a 5-minute clip. Put it on IWillDominate clips channel.
Yep, and we'll monetize. I mean, I get monetization in 3 months, so we'll share the revenue on that one too. But yeah, I would love to just get your opinion on some of the other junglers in the league. Like, who do you think is like super strong? Do you think that there's some junglers that are underrated right now? It seems like most people are appreciating Closer and Santorin the most. People consider these to be the best junglers in the league. Is there anyone that you specifically think is really good? And then I would love to get your opinion on Broxa, because he's been super controversial. I mean, I think I've been pretty low on him, but some other people have said that he's doing exactly what he needs for Team Liquid. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I would just love to hear your opinion on the current landscape of North American jungle right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty hard to judge how good a jungler is if his team is playing really poorly. I think a lot of the junglers, I mean, you need to play well around your team and do kind of what your team needs of you, and you need to cover your lanes if they need help and so on. So it's really hard for me to go on the standings and say oh, Immortals is looking so bad because I don't know, is it jungle or is it the lane's fault? You never know. So I mean, I think Broxa is doing really well for what his team needs of him. So I think you can't say he's a bad jungler because he never feeds. He's always been safe. He's always there to cover his lanes, and he always plays for objectives, which, I mean, it's just what Liquid needs. They always pick for scaling. They always wait for 50-minute games and give up the first 2 dragons, get maybe the 3rd one, and just outscale you. So all you need from the jungle is just someone that's not going to feed and make the game too volatile. So I think he's doing a good job there. I mean, I think the Blabber and Santorin also both really good. So I don't really know after that. I think it's just
from what I get from this, your opinion of Closer isn't as high as the community. A lot of people are considering this guy potential even MVP candidate is what I've heard, because Golden Guardians look like the roster on paper shouldn't be that good. And he's able to pop off every game. And then I guess
they're using the Leon envy logic, aren't they? Of the team should be terrible, but he's just so good, he must be the MVP. That was the logic they kind of used.
Yeah, which I kind of agreed with, and also I guess the point that I would push back on is just when a team is really shit. I mean, Golden Guardians is pretty fucking shit in spring, right? And Closer still looked like a monster back then. So we have seen some junglers actually stand out. But I mean, obviously,
self-made on SK. Yeah, there's a few good examples.
Yeah, self-made on SK, etc. So, what's your opinion on this guy specifically?
I mean, I think he's a really good player, and he makes his teammates play around him, which is also a good strength. Which, I mean, I think he looked a lot better in spring when the team were just performing really poorly, and he made all his teammates play around him. But now that in summer, I think he's in playoffs for sure. He didn't look as strong because I think his teammates found a lot more confidence. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if they didn't really play around him as much as they did in spring this summer playoffs. And I mean, their bot lane and I think Haunts as well were looking really strong. So that might be why. Like their teammates found more confidence to play around themselves rather than just follow what he wanted to do. So I think that's a big part of why.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And then you know, like the other two people that I'd ask about is like Dardoch. This is somebody who competed against for years. I mean, you've seen this guy that was like, he was super insane at the beginning, or it looked like he was super insane, and feels like he kind of fell off. What was your opinion of him back then, and like, has it changed at all? Like, do you think that this guy kind of like was too selfish of a jungler, like wasn't able to acclimate the teams? Like, how do you perceive Dardoch? Because I mean, he's a player that, you know, he's got kicked off TSM after spring. He joined Dignitas. They placed 8th this split, or 7th, 8th, I guess technically. This split, like, do you have any like thoughts on this guy going forward? Do you still think he's one of like NA's, like he has it in him to be one of NA's best junglers?
I mean, I've always viewed him as just being an extremely selfish player, and I think in the jungle, like in a lot of metas as a jungle player, you can't afford to be that selfish. Like, it's just not going to win you games. So obviously you can, I think as a jungler, it's pretty easy to always look good if you just perma-clearing, and then you're going to have levels on the enemy jungler, but you're not going to win the game doing that. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I view him. Like, he likes being in charge of the team, and if the team looks like really shit, then he's going to look good on the shit team, but he's never really going to be able to adapt himself to play with like really good players because he wants to play the game his way rather than listen to his teammates.
Yep. I know that this has always been I mean, he's been one of my, like, you know, like, I mean, I've been biased obviously because I was the one that like pretty much got him into Team Liquid, but I wanted to know what Thorin's opinion was on Dardoch now, because I mean, it's been pretty rough. I mean, my opinion of him has gone down a lot this split.
Oh, of course.
I wanted to know like how you view him, because I mean, this was somebody who like you thought could potentially like save an A back in like season 6, etc.
Yeah, the big problem I think he has is he does have the talent to do it, in my opinion. You see that in like when the meta fits him, or if he just basically has his head screwed on right. He has some games where he looks really good, and like as good as any of the imports. His problem is he never developed his skills beyond that, partly in line with what Svenskaren's saying. Because think about it, every team he was on, he was always like there for one split, or the team was falling apart, and so he played selfishly. Yeah, of course he did. And he's also a guy, for my money, where even if the guy like that loads in Sejuani, he's going to do it in the same way as like a bad kid just does like his chores half-assed. Like, see, it's easy if you just do it, mom. Like, he's not going to fucking do it properly. Like, so my problem with him is like, it's been too many years now. Like, he can't be like an up-and-coming prospect for half a decade, motherfucker. Half a decade is people's entire career in esports. Like, you know, my favorite player, Flame, I don't even know if he played that many years. That might have been about how many years he played, but the difference is he was like top in the world. All you did is just be a prospect and keep getting kicked from teams. So, like, in my opinion, he never properly rounded his skill set out, which is criminal. His attitude, it's not that it didn't change, it got better because he grew older, he matured slightly as a person, but he never figured out the social aspects. It's the same thing a lot of these players make the mistake on. They might not be as directly like toxic themselves, but they don't learn that like basically one of the secrets to all team games is even if you are the best player, you have to convince the other guy to play the way you want to play if you want to win the game then. People like him and Forgiven, they think because they're the best, you should just do it anyway, that you should just give them everything. No, that's not how you do it. Like in these really, I'm sorry, even some of the best athletes, well, like, you know what? I'll guarantee you Tom Brady or someone like that, I bet he's an amazing people person. I bet he has the most sick, like, little talks with guys and keeping track of their family and stuff. He's not doing that because he gives a fuck about this guy's family. He's doing that because he knows that if that's like my wide receiver number 3, I need him to be comfortable. I need to be on the same page. I've got to figure out how to communicate with him. So talking about other things is how I even learn who he is as a person, get a track of his mind, make a profile of him, fit him into my... Like, these guys don't get that angle. And so that's the big thing that's disappointing to me about Dardoch. Like, I wrote that article before he joined TSM where I basically said his entire career, these stories are here. I didn't put in the stories from Echo Fox the second time around because in that scenario, I just didn't have enough of them. But every team he was on, the same stories came up, the same problems occurred. Everyone said he had the talent in all these teams, by the way. Like, dude, Noah Winston from Malls even agreed with me. Like, whoever won the Dardoch lottery one day would have a sick player. It's just he even said, like, it ain't me, though, is it? Like, look, I have to let go of this guy. He's just ruining the team. So, like, to me, he just never learned the lessons he had to. And it's the worst thing is, because he went to the stupidest fan base in the world, TSM fans, just like they did when Doublelift joined, they just pretended that the second he put a TSM jersey on, he was cleansed of all his past sins, and now he's a great guy who knows how to shot call. Apparently, everyone in TSM can shot call. The joke, of course, being TSM fans wouldn't know shot calling if it bashed them upside the head like a fucking frying pan, because you've never had any in your teams, you daft shit. Your shot calling was a guy in season 2 playing Cassiopeia going, come mid, are you fired? Come mid, be like, that was shot calling for you dumb motherfuckers. Like, you know, the game's advanced since then. Why are you all living in the past?
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway,
I feel like
I'm not in there to work with.
I mean, I feel like the idea of a shot caller is actually just fucking troll at this point as well. Like,
Come on.
Like, you look at every good team, right? Every single good team just has this functioning mentality of like everyone needs to call different things at different points of the game, and everyone's a shot caller, right? You look at G2. Who's the shot caller? Like, you'd say Perks is the leader, but is Perks the shot caller of the team? Maybe he'll have like the definite decision in late game situations because, you know, he's the one that has the most respect amongst his teammates. But it's not like Yankos is like fucking asking Perks what to do, or like, I mean, if you watch any of their voice comms, I mean, everyone on that team is making the calls they need to make to get the results that they want. And that's what just needs to happen. Not one player can see everything on the map. Like, everyone has to be able to fully communicate what is on their screen and give their teammates an accurate picture of like what the game state is, like how their champions interact with the other team, and then it should be just a combined effort. So it felt like TSM even hung on to that idea of having a shot caller way too long. Obviously, we saw Svenskeren play with the team where Yellowstar was brought in as like the shot caller, and this guy, like, that was probably one of the most insane failures that TSM has had. I mean, this guy like was benched after a split. Most people just said his mechanics were garbage. Double if like couldn't stand laning with the guy. The next time they brought over Mithy, same type of thing happened where it's like, oh, we got the best bot lane in the West. We have an insane mechanical player. Mithy's going to be our shot caller, and he's going to relieve Bjergsen of the shot calling duties, and that's going to like save the team. And the same thing happened again where it's like you're trying to force this hierarchy where it's like somebody can be the shot caller in one team, but you put a different group of players together, and then somebody else could be the shot caller in the next team. It really just depends
also,
on like.
By the way, those examples, if you ever talk to those players about those, like obviously Yellowstar and Mithy are two of the classic examples. I don't believe they were ever even the shot caller in that way. As in, I believe like what you're saying, they were the captain and they were the guy who made a lot of the big decisions. Like if their voice says do this, people are going to naturally go for it because they're like the leadership figure. But I bet in those teams, in fact, I know it as a fact, in Fnatic, you think Expected and Solas weren't talking all the fucking time when he was playing with them. You think Rainover and Hooney had nothing to say in the game. You think Featherman just stayed silent. Of course he didn't. Like the same with all Mithy's teams. But the point is, I think TSM was telling these guys, like, oh, you are the ultimate shot. You just talk for everyone. It's like, well, I didn't even do that in my old team. What? Like, I'm not surprised people like Yellowstar were like, I'm not doing that shit. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think
I think High ruined NA basically because he actually did do that shit. But like, he's the only person I've ever seen who could do that, man. I don't think anyone else can do that. I think it's healthy either.
He's really, I mean, it was just like necessity, right? I mean, he had a challenger team. He wanted to win NA. He had to just do the most. He was one of the best players in our region.
Quicker. Yeah, exactly.
Like High was somebody who, in my opinion, has always been just so fucking disgustingly underrated by like the community. Like if you were somebody who played with this guy, I mean, this guy was constant. Like there was this narrative, oh, this guy has shit mechanics. He couldn't play like the game. This guy individually was insane. I mean, he was getting top 10 on the ladder whenever he wanted. Sure, he would like have some times where he would like make bad plays or he would make like mechanical errors, but people would define him as a bad mechanical player because like sometimes he would need to go for a mechanical outplay in order to win his team the game, and he wasn't afraid to look like an idiot on stage if it meant that it gave his team a better chance of winning. So like that's a whole different rant we could get into, but I don't know if we have time for that. I mean, this episode has been going on for about 2 hours now. So I just wanted to get, I would just want to like reach out to Svenskeren here. Is there anything that you wanted to cover in the show that we didn't talk about enough? Did you have like another comment to make about the EG roster, anything like that? Or are you good with wrapping the show up here? We always like to, reach out to our guests before we close the show. Make sure you got everything out that you wanted to.
I think I'm good. I think we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, that will be, episode 31 of the Crackdown. Thank you for being here, Svenskeren. I know you don't do a lot of these shows, but it was fun. It was great to hear like a lot of
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was just good to hear a lot of like your stories, man. You've been in the scene forever, so there's so much to actually get into here. I think we went as far back as like season 4, season 5. And yeah, thank you for everyone that came out and watched this episode in the chat. Appreciate it all. Thanks, guys.